From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Wednesday, September 10, 2025. Dispossession and systemic racism. Those ideas will be central to an overhaul of the Victorian curriculum for kids in the earliest years of school. It's all part of the Labor government's bid to move towards a treaty with Indigenous people and a permanent elected representative body similar to the mooted voice to Parliament. Today, Indigenous Affairs editor Paige Taylor on history's delicate balance. The school curriculum, when most of us were in the classroom, didn't really do Australian history justice. There was a lot of drawing lines on maps and human hovel and the gold rush when I was a kid. In fact, our history is rich with drama, romance, tragedy and heroism, vicious colonial power struggles, guerrilla resistance warriors like Pemulwuy and Jundamurra, the incredible seagoing adventures of navigational geniuses James Cook and William Bligh.
God damn your blood to hell with mine, sir. God damn your blood.
Mr. Christian, get a hold of him!
You be quiet or I will run you through.
Do it, Christian! Kill him!
That, if you haven't heard it, is a movie you've got to check out. The Bounty from 1984. Anthony Hopkins as Bligh and Mel Gibson as mutineer Fletcher Christian. It's got an incredible cast. The supporting actors include a very young Liam Neeson, Daniel Day-Lewis and even Laurence Olivier.
I didn't do a subject called history at all.
Paige Taylor is The Australian's Indigenous Affairs editor.
When I was in high school, there was a subject called social studies. And I remember we learned a little bit about contemporary Australia. We were taught about a debate that was going on in public at the time about whether or not it should be legal to be a gay person in Western Australia, where I went to school. There was zero about Indigenous history or the frontier wars.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because it's actually quite exciting history. You know, Americans have lent into the study of the Wild West, as we used to call it. It can be taught in a way that acknowledges both sides, really, can't it?
I think so. I remember choosing Kings in Grass Castles for my book club not that long ago and feeling really embarrassed that it had taken me so long to find that book. It is a gripping story about white settlers making their way across the country, a crocodile attack, these encounters with Aboriginal people. It was a fascinating book and it made me a bit sorry that I hadn't learnt it at school.
Australian history has been a hotly contested topic, and the latest battle is unfolding in Victoria, where there are plans for a dramatic rethink of how our history is taught from the earliest years of formal education.
We walk on stolen land, a truth etched into the soil, in the rivers that have carried stories of a people for millennia, and in the skies that have witnessed it all.
This is a voice actor reading from a document that's now to become a guiding force in Victorian education.
The scars of colonial invasion, its massacres, violence and relentless erasure are not confined to the past. They reside in the present, shaping the lives of First Peoples in Victoria today.
It's from a report by the Yurruk Justice Commission, a Victorian royal commission that was created by Labor Premier Daniel Andrews in 2021 to create an official public record of First Peoples' experience of what the report calls systemic injustice since the start of colonisation.
Colonial systems have shape-shifted but never relinquished their grip. From the first footsteps of invaders to the halls of contemporary power, the machinery of dispossession persists.
The Yurruk report doesn't pull any punches. It's very direct language. So, for example, at one point, the Commission says that across its extensive body of work, which went from 2022 to 2024, Yurruk has consistently found that the injustices faced by First Peoples in Victoria, and they're talking about modern day injustices, flow directly from colonisation. So that's a view that I think is quite contentious with many Australians. They're talking about the things we see in the Closing the Gap report, overrepresentation in jails, low birth weights, the fact that children aren't as ready for year one as they ought to be, the suicide rates. Europe Reports links this all directly to colonisation and its ongoing impact.
How do you think it will be infused into the Victorian curriculum?
I think we're going to be a long time waiting to find out the answer to that, because in the document before the Victorian Parliament, in the bill, it says that this is yet to be worked out between the representative body, the First Peoples body, called Galangwal, and the various departments that have a say in this. So it's going to be what they call co-designed. I know people's eyes glaze over when they hear the word co-design. It's become a little bit of a nothing word, but what it basically means is they're going to sort it out together. And it's subject to the powers of the minister. The minister of the day has the authority to say, actually, I don't like this at all, try again, or, yep, love it, let's go.
Paige, in Victoria, like in the rest of Australia, we've seen a reconsideration of history in the past few years, particularly about some of the former superstars of history. For example, there's a statue of Captain Cook in central Melbourne that's been vandalised a number of times at Cook's Cottage. They've had to remove the statue for its own safety at times. Do you think the Victorian education system is capable of getting some kind of balance in the curriculum so there is an acknowledgement of the subtleties of our history, of looking fairly at the intentions of people like Captain Cook and Arthur Phillip, for example?
I think they need to, and I suspect they know they need to, because that's going to create a legitimacy for the rest of the curriculum. I'm not a curriculum expert, but I imagine there are going to be some pretty robust discussions when this thing is co-designed. There's nothing I've seen in the bill which suggests a complete takeover of the history curriculum, but how it's inserted and the context is going to be crucial. I think what the government and the education department will be keen to avoid is a situation where parents are upset about what their children are learning. They need to bring the parents with them so that they can properly explain that this is adding to the children's knowledge. It needs to be understood that they're not replacing the entire curriculum with a narrative about squatters and their insatiable hunger for land and how that displaced people and starved them. Those things did happen, but other things happened too.
This nation-leading bill and the treaty process as a whole shows what we can achieve when we listen to First Peoples and work together for better outcomes.
Victoria's still got a Labor government. Now the Premier is Jacinta Allen, and she's shepherding in a big reform program about Indigenous Affairs. It starts with a new body called Galangwal.
This is a body like nothing we've ever seen in Australia. I'm quite sure this is unique, and that's because it took so long to organise. This is a 10-year process, and the traditional owners of Victoria got together with the various Aboriginal organisations, and they've really thought about this over a long period of time, and it's all been done in consultation with the Victorian government. Until last year, the opposition was on board too. I think the Victorian government they've got an interest in getting this right, not only because they think it's the right thing to do, but because I'm told repeatedly by people in government that they want to get policy right. They want to make informed decisions about where to put money. They want to know what's working and what's not working, but they don't know who to talk to. It's an ad hoc system where people who are highly motivated, highly mobile and with agency go to Parliament and say, look what I'm doing, it's so good. But what about the people who don't have, for want of a better word, a voice? This is a representative body that is the most comprehensive attempt at capturing everyone. I think the government sees it as a one-stop shop on Indigenous policy. I think they believe it's going to make their job a lot easier. I think they believe it's going to save them a lot of money.
Victoria already has something called the First Peoples Assembly, which is an elected body which already consults with government. What will be the difference between that and Galangwal?
It's basically the same but expanded. So the First Peoples Assembly was created specifically to do this bill. It was put together for the purposes of working out the treaty. And so what we're going to see if this bill passes is a version of the First Peoples Assembly, but it will have authority. It's going to be able to make rules about who can and cannot claim to be Aboriginal. It's going to have a room in Parliament, access to Parliament. It's going to have an accountability arm, so a commission off to the side that can audit government departments. I mean, this could be revolutionary in some ways. If this accountability mechanism gets stuck into underperforming bureaucrats and government agencies that are wasting money, that could be amazing.
Paige, let's talk about that idea of who is identifying as Indigenous now. Between 2016 and 2021, the census showed a big jump in the number of people identifying as Aboriginal. There's been contention about why that was happening. Some people have said it's because there was less shame attached to having Aboriginal heritage. People were more proud of that and were more willing to put it in the census. Other people have suggested different motives for people identifying as Indigenous, like perhaps being able to apply for jobs that they might not be able to get if they weren't. How hot is this as an issue within the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, and why would it be something that the government would want this new body to take a look at?
Well, I think Aboriginal people understand that the government has these dedicated positions sometimes. You know, they want to hire an Indigenous person for a particular job. They can do that. The Commonwealth has the power to do that, and you can see those jobs advertised sometimes. But the government doesn't want to be giving these jobs to people who aren't recognised by their community as Indigenous. In my round in Indigenous Affairs, I'm quite often fielding calls and emails and correspondence from Aboriginal people who are pretty concerned that someone is in a position where their Aboriginality matters, it's part of their career, and there are people in the community who aren't even sure if this person is Indigenous or not. And this organisation, Galangwal, is going to have the authority to create a uniform guideline, rule, standard, and that's going to make, I think, some of the criticisms dampen down about whether or not someone's in a position that they shouldn't be in if the test is standard.
Coming up, what would a treaty actually look like? What would a treaty mean in Victoria?
The treaty bill we've seen in the Parliament this week is not your traditional treaty where an amount of money and some land is exchanged and that's the end of it. It's an ongoing arrangement to do things in partnership. And I think there are some romantic ideas around about what a treaty is, but the modern treaty, constitutional experts tell me, is just so different to the kinds of treaties that were made in North America. When those treaties were made in the early days of the settlement of North America, it was two peoples who were trying to work out how they can get the most out of their arrangement with each other, and there was no government structure over the top of it. You know, this has all had to be done within the laws that have existed for a long time in this country.
There's been a shift in the political landscape over the past 10 years when it comes to these issues. The Victorian Liberals previously supported the idea of progress towards a treaty and a First Peoples Assembly. Now they don't support it. Of course, there was a national referendum in the past couple of years about creating a federal voice to Parliament, and that was rejected. So what do you think of the prospects of this actually coming to life, and how do you think Victorians are going to receive it?
I think there are people in the state opposition in Victoria who are pragmatic about this. They knew for a long time that there was something very good about having a representative body that they could go to on Indigenous policy, and they did. When they were in opposition, they relied on the First Peoples Assembly for advice and guidance, and I think they got a lot out of it, or they told me they did. But this got very hot during the referendum campaign. The First Peoples Assembly, the body put together to do this treaty, began to look a lot like a voice. Not a constitutionally enshrined one, but a voice nonetheless. And it was pretty inconvenient for the Victorian opposition to be backing it. And that's what I saw play out. I think the state opposition may very well vote against it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use it the next time they're in government.
Paige Taylor is The Australian's Indigenous Affairs editor. You can read all about this story right now at theaustralian.com.au.